Thank you. It's my pleasure to welcome Nathan Sutherland. He is the founder of the Flint and Iron, as well as Gospel Tech Ministries. Nathan's passion and hope is to see kids and their families reach full potential. Teaching middle school for 11 years inspired Nathan with 3 critical truths. Everyone has potential. Little choices matter. It's never too late to be great. A lot of material that Nathan creates, including his books, podcasts, and seminars, come from his personal experience, as well as from his diligent research effort. Nathan lives in the Seattle area with his wife and 3 children. They are passionate about sharing how they fought against the hold technology has had on their own lives. We're pleased to have Nathan in tonight's seminar and believe he will be a blessing to many families. Please welcome tonight's speaker, Nathan Sutherland.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to first make sure, before we go any further, that you all have the handout. This will be important, this little piece of paper right here. It's important for 2 reasons. First, it'll help you follow along, and second, it will help you remember. I'm going to cover a lot of information in the next 60 minutes. The focus of tonight's conversation is really threefold. We're going to be talking about how we can talk about healthy tech, how we can focus on raising kids in a tech world with hope, and then how we can use the best tech well. It's going to do that on the backside. You'll see some of the research that we use to reach this. That's by parent request. People love going in and doing more research, finding out more information for themselves, so you're welcome to do that. It's a little tasty tidbit to keep it going. A little bit about myself. As Mr. Alexander explained, I was a teacher in the Puyallup School District for a decade. I taught at Aylen Junior High and was just reconnected with the parent of a former student who's now 26. So there's that. That's always very troubling when they're the age you were when you taught them. You're like, wait, how did that happen? That's where I got my passion for seeing young people reach their full potential. It's why I now spend my full-time job speaking to parents and organizations that work with young people to equip you all to do the good work of raising up healthy youth in a tech world. I can't talk to every kid, but I know some parents who can talk to more kids than I can. And you have the day-to-day opportunity to get those tech wins. The second thing I want you to know is that I have had a history with technology that has been sometimes amazing and beneficial and sometimes negative, so I've lived both sides. And that fans my passion for the third thing you need to know, which is seeing my kids raised in a tech world that I would like to see them grow up into. I've got 3 humans. The middle one is Owen. He's 11. Henry's on the right. He's 9. And Hadley is 5.5. And you do need to know a little bit about them for this to make sense. They're 3 very different people. Owen is a classic firstborn. He's the really organized kid. He loves rules. He's the one when he was 2, he was doing the Tupperware by size. Owen thinks you're doing him a favor when you ask him to organize a drawer. He likes rules. He likes other people following rules. They make him very happy. Board games, baseball, things that have reasons, even if they're rules that he just made up that you must follow, right? We like these people. We call him our teen camp counselor. He always is planning the next event. There's no free Saturdays in our weekends because Owen always fills them with activities. And then there's Henry. Henry is the most present person you have ever met. Henry's that kid who can't worry about tomorrow because it hasn't happened yet. Henry doesn't worry about the past because it can't be changed. Henry is in this moment, like when you have Mary and Martha, and one's like, I'm working really hard, and the other one's just sitting. That's Henry. Now, I do worry about him occasionally about like crossing streets, because he's so in the moment, he sometimes forgets there's cars. I'm thinking about maybe just having him move in with Owen when he grows up. But he is very present. Henry walked into my house wearing one shoe. I said, Henry, where's your other shoe? And he looked at his feet, and he looked at me, and he goes, I don't know. Not like he was looking for it. Not like he was worried. Just, you know what, Dad? You can't change the past. The future hasn't happened yet. I'm a boy with one shoe. Love me as I am. And that's amazing In terms of, a lot of us get anxious, worried about the future, or fretting about the past. Henry's very present. Then there's Hadley. Hadley is a dynamic personality. She is a lot of person. She's the most like me. She's a true extrovert. You know these people. Like when they're having a bad day, they just need more people around them, and that fixes it. She is what I call a human disco ball. She's the kind of person that when she shows up in the room, she brings the party. You might have been having a party. It's now her party when she shows up. And she understands exactly what that means. She's a big, vibrant, beautiful personality, and she brings joy to our family that we needed when the rest of your family is a camp counselor and an absent-minded professor. So those are my three kids. If you think about how they would use tech then, well, Owen uses all the tech that brings structure, order, and known quantities. He likes coding because coding never does anything other than what you do. So Scratch is a program made by MIT, and it's a beautiful introduction to coding. Owen loves that. And then Henry, but if tech is going to be used poorly, it's because Owen's trying to control his own universe, and he gets frustrated when life doesn't turn out exactly the way like he told it to. So tech can take a negative turn because he's trying to over-control. It can make him anxious. Henry, on the other hand, does not ever use technology for structure. He uses it for presence. And one of the most present forms of technology you can enjoy is a video game. Gives you constant goals. You don't even have to think of what to do next. It just tells you. And then you go do that, and it gives you rewards, and then it gives you another goal. And you just constantly are accomplishing. So he's one of those people that can use the technology and then look up like 3 hours later and have no idea how he got there because he was so present in that moment. Now, that happens to some of us, but it's one of those people where it's so beautiful to be present, but tech is so good at keeping your attention, sometimes he forgets to look away and enjoy the rest of his life. And then Hadley, such a people person, so beautiful around. She doesn't know a stranger. She's never met one. They're all just future friends. But you put that on the internet, and you have all these people telling you things about your identity, some of them true and helpful, but some of them not. And even the true helpful, like, you're great, you're beautiful, you are popular. Well, that gives me a lot of identity, and now I need that feedback to be okay. And you can form an unhealthy relationship with something like social media that's telling you what it means to be beautiful or smart or popular or valuable. So keep in mind 3 kids, 3 different positive ways to use tech, 3 different ways that you can see it spin off and spiral in a negative way. And none of it was tech's fault. Part of that's just how we're wired. So when we have today's conversation about making tech safe at home, we're going to talk about the 2 types of tech. We're going to talk about how we can know if it's a problem. Some of you, your kids are using tech and it's great. Some of you, there are some issues that we're going to address and you're going to know by the end of tonight. And then how do we make it safe at home, which I've split into 2 parts you'll see on that handout. The actual what do we do at home, like with hardware and software, and then the how do we think about it when our kid goes, can I play this game? Can I use this device? Can I do this activity? Safe, ready, and good is the conversation starter piece of that. So, with no further ado, there are 2 kinds of tech. There is tool tech. Let's go back. Tool tech, and there's drool tech. This is not good and bad. This is tech that helps you create and tech that helps you consume. That's really, really important at a design level. The reason I love being able to present these conversations here in the Northwest is because we have so many people in this area that are hands-on making this technology, and there's 2 reasons to do it. It's either going to help you accomplish your own goal, tool tech. You want to write a paper, you want to make a game, you want to create a video, it only does what you tell it to do. It has no strings attached and no behavioral training involved. Tool tech. Drool tech will help you accomplish a goal, but it always comes with a goal of its own. It always wants to take your time, your focus, and your money. So it will help you learn that new language, but it will also remind you when you try to leave that you're only 50 points away from Emerald League, and you should probably give it 5 more minutes. Now, there's no problem with staying 5 extra minutes to learn a language. That's what you wanted to do, but you'd planned 15, and you give 5 extra because tech told you to. That's the difference between tool and drool. So the 8th grade teacher in me comes out. Here comes the pop quiz, people. I need you to find an elbow partner. That's someone you can bump with an elbow. If you don't know them, introduce yourself. Actually, right now, it's happening. Go. I know, that's why they shouldn't give me microphones. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you a type of technology. You are going to turn to the person next to you and tell them if it's tool or drool, and a quick explanation of why, but you only have 10 seconds. Let's practice. Type of technology number 1, nail gun. Turn to your elbow partner, tell them tool or drool and why. Go. Raise your hand if you said tool tech. Raise your hand if you said drool tech. Raise your hand if you thought it was a trap. Okay, how good. The cynical people in the room. Thank you. Now I know who you are. Yeah, it was. I was just trying to be really, really simple. Right? It's a nail gun. It's literally a tool. And it never goes, you've used 500 nails, but for $1.95. Right? Like, there's no behavioral gimmick involved. It doesn't give you medals for your 10,000th nail that day. Right? It only does what you want to do. You want to put a piece of metal through a piece of wood. That's what it's good at. It's like a fancy hammer, which is just a fancy rock tied to a stick. It's just a good way to leverage your talents and abilities quickly. Tool tech. All right, second example. Podcast. Turn to your elbow partner. 10 seconds. Go. Two seconds. 1. Raise your hand if you said tool tech. Raise your hand if you said drool tech. It gets tricky real quick, doesn't it? All right, this is tricky, though, and close to my heart, because I have a podcast. We're 3 years in, and it can be an amazing resource. The reason podcasts are tricky, if you think about this, so I'm listening to someone talk. That's tool tech. I can stop at any time I want. There's nothing forcing me to stay. It's just a unilateral conversation. It's great. It's just a recording. But almost every platform that we engage with works kind of like Netflix or any other streaming service, where you go to view the same content you viewed on a consistent basis, but it's not at the top or even partway down. You have to scroll for it. On Netflix, it's not the first row or the second row. Sometimes it's on the next page is the show that you watch every single time. Podcasts can be like this. You finish your one episode and it just loads another episode you never asked for. Because it's not trying to give you stuff you want, it's trying to give you stuff that'll get you to stay. And that's important to know by design. It doesn't mean the new content is bad. In fact, I've had people reach out to me. Some of my traveling speaking is people where my content was suggested by an algorithm. They were watching something on YouTube and I popped up, just next video, and they watched it and they're like, wow, we could really use this resource. There are perks, but there's also stuff that pops up that's not so perky. Right? It's not so helpful. So podcasts, content alone. So hypothetically, if you go to gospeltech.net/podcast, just in theory, you would go to a website that has no ads built in and no links to outside sources. It's just going to play you that episode and then stop. But if you go to Spotify or Audible or Apple Podcasts, you're going to run into a lot of content that's intended for retention. Next type of tech. Tool or drool with your elbow partner. News feeds through your favorite app, social media, news source, go. Raise your hand if you said tool tech. Raise your hand if you said drool tech. It has the word feed in it. This is not to say you can't find valuable information. It means that those apps are not set up to keep you as an informed citizen of our world. They're set up to make you really happy or really angry. Because if you're really happy, you go to social media and you're like, we were always right. Or if it makes you really angry, you go to social media and like, they're always wrong. And those drive engagement, which then drives clicks. Other people want to get in on this, which drives revenue. And that's what we need to recognize about news feeds is unless you're using multiple news apps on the same subject across a spectrum of views. So you take something on the more liberal side and something on the more conservative side, and you compare on the same topic, and then you apply that. Congratulations, you're using that to be an informed citizen. But the tech isn't helping you do that. The tech is giving you information. If you open the same app as someone next to you, so both of you go to the Wall Street Journal, and you both click on the same thing, there's a very good chance you're not going to get the same articles suggested to you because they're targeted for you. And you're not going to get the same ads, by the way, either. But news feeds generally are driven by an algorithm or AI, and they're intended for engagement, not just for information. That's especially important when our children are going to the internet for, say, school research. They use something like ChatGPT or Google search or a Bing search. That's important for us to recognize that feeds, algorithms, and AI are intended for engagement, time, focus, and money, not well-rounded research. How about your computer? Tool or drool, turn to your neighbor, go. Raise your hand if you said tool. Raise your hand if you said drool. What if you said both? Anyone here said both? Yeah, right? This is so, when I was in the Puyallup School District, they went 1-to-1. Every kid got a laptop. And it was really tricky because I had put together a whole lesson that involved a bunch of stories that are really sad, is effectively the short version. I was trying to teach my 8th graders tone and mood. Tone is how the author sounds. Mood is how it makes you feel. It's important because conveying simple words on a page 100 years later can still make you feel stuff. But if you ask an 8th grader, how'd that make you feel? They'll either say hungry or bored. I'm like, well, that wasn't the author's intent. Okay, how can I get to this? So I realized starting in January, when they arrive at school in the dark and they leave for home in the dark, I would bring out just bummer after bummer after bummer of stories. They're all very sad. And at some point, an 8th grader goes, this is just so sad. And I stop and I go, why? Because nothing good ever happens. Continue. Because I don't understand why we can't just read something happy. I'm like, right, because fiction can still give you feelings, right? And then I would leave feeling very good about my job as an 8th grade teacher. I bummed out an 8th grader and I feel awesome. But in that same unit one year, 32 kids in my room all have 1-to-1 devices. I learned that there was a notification system baked into the computers that we had purchased. We own these. They're not leased. They're not here free to use. We purchased them. These notifications said, did you know this computer has Minecraft? And it's not just a notification, it's a clickable banner, which means my child who's supposed to be going to the shared drive to read a bummer of a story to teach them about the power of fiction on their hearts and minds can also just click that banner and escape to the world of Steve. And there's a picture where 26 of 32 have all clicked it, and I never told them to. Right? Just back of the room looking forward, and all the laptops are Minecraft. Right? Like, it's very hard. That's the same device. The same device your child is using to escape reality is the same device we're asking them to do the hardest, most focused tasks of their lives. And it can be tricky. So when we think about tool and drool tech, we need to know that it doesn't matter if it's connected to the internet or if it has a screen, if it plugs into a wall. It matters what it's designed to do. Minecraft is designed to entertain. It's designed for engagement. Microsoft Word, on the other hand, would be designed as tool tech. That's my favorite example. I think as Copilot becomes more of a thing, you might actually see the shift towards drool tech. But right now, none of you has ever taken your $1,000 alarm clock, put it by your bedstand, and rolled over at 11 p.m. to go to bed, and your alarm clock buzzes, and you pick it up. There's a notification, and you click on it, and it says, hey, haven't seen you in a while, and it's Microsoft Word. I thought maybe we could write a haiku. Word doesn't do that. You could write once a day, once a month, once a year, and it will never bother you. There's no point system for writing more words, and it will never go, hey, that girl down the street already started her book, and it's way better than yours. Here's an excerpt so that you feel terrible about yourself. Have a good night. Word doesn't matter. It doesn't worry about that, right? It's not based on user engagement. It's just based on being a functional digital typewriter. Compare that then to the most common forms of drool tech. Social media, shows and movies, music, by which I mean streaming services, the Spotifys and Amazon Music, video games. These all have high levels of engagement training in them. They are trying to keep you longer than you want to stay. I say music, if you're listening on a record or a family member is playing an instrument, that's not what we're talking about, right? If it's a record that's one band or one group playing one album sequentially and you have to flip it to keep hearing music, we're not going to get overstimulated or confused or run into content we didn't expect. But streaming services, you can. So Drool Tech, my favorite example is YouTube, because YouTube has 2.5 billion monthly users. They want to show you a video, and then they want you to stay for an extra, because if they can get 1 out of 10, if 10 people show up, watch the one video they wanted to watch, and then walk away, but one of them stays for 60 seconds one time a month. That's all they need. 1 out of 10, I need an extra 60 seconds. They gain 173,000 days worth of viewing. That's a big deal. That is something like 47,000 days, and the last time they gave us that number was 2016, and YouTube said it wasn't 1 out of 10, it was 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 YouTube video viewers were coming to click on a video say how to fix your furnace and staying to figure out how that squirrel got through that maze, which isn't a bad video to watch. Again, the point is you made a decision based on what tech told you to do. That's the concern behind Drool Tech. If you're going to have a fight at home about technology, there's a very low chance it's about email, right? Very few of you have been like, dinner in 10 minutes, and your kid shouts back, I need 20. This email is going great. There's a good chance they've shouted something like, I can't pause the game. I'm playing it online. There's a good chance they're like, yeah, but I'm talking to my friends on social media. There's a good chance that they said, but I'm learning a new language and I need 50 more points so I can get to Emerald League. The question then is, how does that work? Here's the short version. Operant conditioning, it's psychology 101, and it's how every good piece of Drool Tech is designed. You're a rat. They're going to reward you by giving you a treat, or they're going to punish you by taking something away, because you can't be trusted with nice things. The way that looks, Nira Yal talks about it in his book, Hooked, is you're going to have a trigger, something as frankly disrespectful as a notification. Notifications, by the way, are tech companies assuming you're dumb. Like, let's be very clear. You're living your life, and tech companies go, listen, I know you're supposed to focus on your kids right now, but what you actually need to do is go talk to that friend from high school that you haven't seen in 20 years. It's their birthday. How about you stop everything and go talk to them? Notifications are quite rude, actually. You should be offended, and you should turn them off. Because what they're going to do is they're a trigger that leads you to an action. You're going to open it, you're going to check it, you're going to view it, you're going to play it. That gives you a variable reward. It could be as simple as an actual like loot drop in a video game. Think the llama in Fortnite. Or it could be something like a mean comment. There are no bad variable rewards, because even mean people let you know you exist. There's nothing we love more than showing up on that Reddit thread a second time to make sure that we can go really take it out of people. YouTube comments. How many of you watch a video and then always scroll down and read what happens next? Right? There's a reason for that. It's high engagement. You stayed an extra 30 seconds. That's worth money. Because the next time, you're now more invested. So when you get that notification, or you get bored, or you get anxious, or you get lonely, or you get tired, you're more likely to repeat that loop. A few examples of what Drool Tech behavioral training looks like. Notifications, we covered that. Likes, the like button. I never actually understood this, like, but why was the like? People talk about it like, oh, 2010, the like button. Here's why it's a big deal. The like button changed human behavior forever. Prior to 2010, there was no way to quantify certain things, like pictures of your food. You post a picture of your food, I post a picture of my food. People go, nice food. But now we post, you get 50 likes and I get 5. You are literally 10 times more valuable in food pictures. An algorithm can take that, can decide to send that to other people that would also like food pictures, and you will get more of them than I will because you're more valuable. The like button made that possible. Swipe to refresh based off a slot machine. Pull and get a bountiful reward of new info. Infinite scroll. Never in human history has something been infinite other than God. Every play ends, every book ends, every day ends, but not your feed on TikTok. Feeds, content specified for you and your viewing habits. Followers and stats. Yes, you can be an influencer, and you don't even have to know what you're influencing. It's just a thing you can become. Points and rewards, a way to motivate you, and the fear of missing out, which is the reason your kid keeps asking for a smartphone, so they can use social media, so they can be an influencer. It's very powerful. It's basic human psychology, like we mentioned with the Skinner's box. But it's just kids, right? Like, we are adults. We clearly would never struggle with this. I want you to take out your phone, especially if you have an iPhone. I wasn't able to do this on iPhone, and I couldn't figure out a way to do them simultaneously without it being really confusing. So iPhone people, do this with me. Take out your iPhone. You're going to go to Settings. It's the one in the box there in the middle. Go to the little gear-looking thing. And once you're in there, scroll down until you see Screen Time. Click on Screen Time. You need to click underneath the little blue bars, click See All Apps and Website Activity. It's going to show you two things. It's going to show you how much time this week on average you used your device, which is awesome, especially when you're going to go talk to your kid about their tech. You can use information from your own life. But wait, there's more. Keep scrolling on that second page, and you'll find this little ditty. The number of times you've picked up your phone by day. It's not the number of times you checked your clock. That's how many logins you've got. You can see I had 279 total pickups. The most pickups was Monday with 56, and my week average was 40. When I was going through a really stressful time this summer, I was checking this with my wife, Anna. And I was like, how much screen time do you have? So I was looking at this previous one. She's like, I have like 4.5 hours a day. And I was feeling really good because I had like 45 minutes. I was like, I have 45 minutes. And then I scrolled down and realized I had 120 pickups in 45 minutes worth of use, which if you do the math on that, that's a compulsion. That's not because I was using my phone 120 times. I was just like checking it randomly. Watch yourself. When you go wait in a line at a grocery store, you're going to unlock your phone. When you're stuck in a hallway for too long, you're going to unlock your phone. When your kids are brushing their teeth and you don't know what to do with your hands, you're going to unlock your phone. And if you're like me and you've deleted everything cool off your phone, you'll just check the weather app. This is important because if it works on you and I as adults, it definitely works on kids who have not yet developed their frontal cortex. The stats we have on youth on screens is that they average 8 or more hours a day on entertainment tech. That impacts mental health. There's a direct causal link between the use of entertainment tech, drool tech technology that gives you that constant feedback, and a decline in mental well-being. Starting at 2 hours a day, children that use social media, video games, 2 hours a day, 22% more likely to suffer from depression or suicidal ideation. Up to 5 hours a day, they're more than 60% more likely to experience depression and suicidal ideation, and we're averaging 8. I'll get to a stat that stems from that. But the use of internet-based entertainment, specifically social media, is tied with anxiety and sadness, a lowering of academic success, and what researchers call brain drain, and that having to think about not viewing their phone actually takes part of their attention. So like if their phone is out while they're doing schoolwork, they're having to think, don't check my phone, don't check my phone, don't check my phone, don't check my phone. That takes some of the deep work focus they could be having. That stat I gave you about mental health, CDC in 2023 said nearly 3 in 5 U.S. teen girls felt persistently sad or hopeless. 3 in 5? That is a wild number. And it actually, if you read Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, they were able to put it directly at 2011, a year after the introduction of the like button. Because that's the year we started to be able to leverage people's attention for profit. Because we can tell how much you're worth if you stay an extra 60 seconds in a month. All of a sudden now we have metrics that we can quantify, and that lets us leverage them for profit. All right, so now I need you to turn to your elbow partner. That was a lot of information. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Tell your elbow partner, number 1, which tech your family uses well. It could be tool tech, it could be drool tech, but something that goes well in your family. You're like, this is good. And which one, if you're going to have a conflict in your family, do you have the most conflict on? I'm giving you 2 minutes to talk this out, and then we'll continue. Go. "20 seconds. So we know the two kinds of tech. There's tool and drool, helps us create or helps us consume. It's not good and bad. But if we're going to have a fight, it's probably about drool tech. The question is, how do I know if it's a problem? So they use drool tech. Are we doing well with that? Is it just a different way to do the same stuff? They're hanging out with their friends and it's great. Or is it actually causing issues and we need to address it? We're going to use an acronym that's on your paper. It's called a reset. The reset is an awesome way to talk to your children, your neighbors, those siblings that don't have the same agreement when they come over for Christmas with their kids and their different tech standards. Even spouses. I get asked a lot, how do I talk to my spouse about this type of technology? Reset. Here's why. Reset allows you to fight for your loved one, not just with them. It is not about winning an argument. This is not the artillery to go blow them out of the water and go, aha, I knew you were wrong and Nathan told me so. Instead, it's to say, hey, 5 areas, your relationships and responsibilities, your emotions, sleep, enjoyment, time. Does your tech impede any of these 5? And if it does, that's why I'm concerned. I'm concerned because you're not the same person when this tech is present. That's your talking point. Again, when I say you're fighting for them, it's because you love them and you want them to be all they can be. And sometimes technology gets in the way. So you want to address that. They might have an explanation, by the way. They might go, oh, no, actually, I just do that because I'm stressed. This thing over here is what's causing me stress. Okay. Now you know it's not tech. That's a symptom of this other issue that's going on. They're getting bullied. They're not feeling mentally well. They're not getting enough sleep. They're stressed out about finals or work or whatever. But you have to bring in the conversation. That's your opportunity as a loving individual in their life, family member or neighbor or sibling. So let's look at it. First, relationships and responsibilities. Relationally, I mean family and friends. Are you worse as a sibling when you play this video game? If so, let's talk about it. Hey, I've noticed you're more mean to your sister when you play this game. And the child might go, yeah, it's just because she's really annoying. And be like, that's actually not true. She's always annoying. You're just more mean to her when you play this game, which some of you recognize this, right? That happens. So have that talking point and see if there is something else or if it's actually just the game. Similarly, with friends, you might go, I've just noticed you have a lot more drama with your friends when you use the social media platform. Is anything going on? Is it because social media is where you go to communicate and you happen to be communicating a lot about drama? Or is the platform the problem? That people are just flying off at the mouth and being mean to one another using this platform that they would never say face to face? Ask the question. That's what we're trying to get to if they become more relationally isolated. They become less connected to the family expectations or the responsibilities, the things they've agreed to, responsibilities being your schoolwork or things within the family. You have family chores. Responsibility, you have family meals. It doesn't have to be dinner, but maybe you always do breakfast together. We are going to be together on these days for this meal. You need to show up. And if you're not showing up because of tech use, that becomes a talking point. You can go to that person and say, I'm concerned because we love you. We want to know you, and you're not coming where we are. What's going on? So that's our talking point then. That just kicks off the conversation. It could lead anywhere, but there's always a chance that there's actually tech causing the problem, at which point it's perfectly loving to remove the offending tech. Harmful technology is not a human right. Your child has no right to technology that will hurt him or her or the people around him or her. It is your loving job as a parent and loved one to step in and go, no, because I don't hate you. This is fun. This is great. It seems to work for other people. It certainly doesn't work for you. We just had the conversation on relationships and responsibilities. Let's find something that's a better fit. Emotions is our second one. Does it impede your emotions? By this, I mean, do you need this thing to be okay? Not just it's fun, but like when life gets stressful, you run here. When life gets really happy, you run here. You don't seem to be able to function without it. It could be a show. It could be music. There's kids who need the AirPod in to be able to function. We were just talking right before this. There's some young people, they use their phone like a hoodie, like a stuffy. They just need it in front of them to be okay in social situations. That's coping, so that's understandable, but that's also not a long-term strategy. We need to work with, okay, what about this situation is causing you anxiety? And how can we help you learn to wean yourself emotionally off the phone as your kind of digital pacifier? And instead, use the phone because it's good and then walk away. Or you play this game or listen to this music because it's good and then also be okay being on your own. Sleep is key. We're going to dive a little deeper into this one, but effectively, if you have drool tech in the bedroom, your sleep is impeded. There's no research saying drool tech in the bedroom is a good idea. There's a lot of research saying it opens your child up to a lack of sleep, which causes academic loss, an increased likelihood of anxiety and depression, bullies, predators, and pornography. So sleep's pretty key. Keep rooms free of drool tech, meaning smart TVs, gaming consoles, personal devices, $1,000 alarm clocks. You don't need a smartphone as an alarm clock? You can use this one. It's $30 on Amazon. Order it now. It'll be home before you. I actually use that one. It's great. It runs on 2 AAA batteries. The last 6 months, you'll need 4 batteries a year. You flip it over to turn on the alarm. You flip it over to turn it off. Great. It's not sponsored. I get no money from that. It's just a useful functional device, and I found it really annoying to look for an actual alarm. My wife has one, and I have one, so when I travel, she still has an alarm. We try to model this for our kids. It's not perfect. And yes, when your kid goes to whatever late night football game and you want to make sure they're okay, keep your phone around. We're just talking about day to day, if you need whale sounds to fall asleep, again, that's coping. What can we do to get us to a healthy spot? We get it, seasons of anxiety, seasons of sleeplessness, and we want to be able to break away from entertainment technology to function. Because sleep impacts every part of your life, says Matthew Walker, head of the Berkeley Sleep Study Unit. Sleep Study Institute. There's the word. A lack of sleep can cause panic attacks. A lack of sleep is linked to depression and suicide. If you have a kid who's feeling anxious, who's feeling depressed, who's dealing with mental health issues, sleep is the first thing we should look to. You can't adapt to it. You don't just get used to no sleep. At some point, your body, I love that line, puts you in sleep debt. It's like putting a lien on your life. Your brain goes into what's called micro sleep. This is when people fall asleep on highways and they didn't realize they were asleep because they can fall asleep with their eyes open. Your brain just shuts off to save your life. You will die if you don't sleep enough. You actually can't die unless someone's artificially keeping you awake, so like an amphetamine, to keep you alive, because your brain will literally just start going to sleep with your eyes open to save itself from dying. So keep that in mind if you have young drivers in your life. A loss of 1 hour, there needs to be some explanation on this, is equivalent to 2 grade levels. They put sleep monitors on kids and then scatter plotted them over the course of a week, and they found that within 4 days of losing 1 hour sleep, you drop 2 academic levels. It comes back as soon as you start getting consistent sleep again. But within a week, they could watch a precipitous decline in kids because of just tracking sleep. Sleep is really important. And by the way, if you have any fitness fanatics in your family, sleep matters for putting on muscle. If you don't get sleep, you release stress hormones, and stress hormones keep on body fat, because body fat is really important for survival. So if your body's convinced it may not survive, it'll burn muscle and keep fat. So sleep to get them gains, kids. That's your lesson for today. Enjoyment. Enjoyment, not that you like it, but again, that it eclipses everything else in your life. This new technology has entered your home, has entered your life, entered your heart, and that's all that's awesome now. That's a conversation point. Hey, I noticed you used to love playing this sport, playing this instrument, playing with these people, enjoying this other activity, and it seems like all you enjoy now is this one thing. Time? Can you agree to a time and be okay, or is it a constant battle for more? That just in itself, hey, I've noticed we agreed to 30 minutes, and you are peppering me. Just the fact that you can't accept 30 minutes, which we agreed to, means we're just not going to do this. Now, that's a hard decision. There will be tears. In any one of these situations where tech shows itself to be unhealthy and you go, yeah, we're going to take that away. We're going to replace it with something awesome, because I'm not here to punish you for this. I'm here to support you, and this is not supportive. I want to give you good gifts. You asked for an egg, it's nutritious, and I gave you a scorpion, which is hurting you. I'm going to take the scorpion. I made a mistake. We're going to give you something awesome that's going to help you continue to be healthy. I know you had someone in your mind that you were thinking of about your tech. You're like, oh, I can't wait till I get to do a reset with this person. But before you do, I want you to reflect on your own tech. How do you do on a fist to 5? Fist is a 0. 5 is a 5. That shouldn't be too crazy. If you had a reset, 5 letters, how many of them were impeded by your technology? None of them? 1 of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them. Would you turn to your elbow partner and tell them what your reset score is? How many areas out of relationships and responsibilities, emotions, sleep, enjoyment, time, how many of those 5 were impeded by tech in your life? Go. All right. Now I'm going to ask you to show me. This is something I like to do with middle school students, so I'm going to ask you to all participate. You don't have to say it out loud. We're not going to call on anyone. But fist to 5, would you show me real quick what your response was for yourself? How many areas were impeded for you? And I can actually see your hands. You're not that far away. So, Thank you. All right, hands down. That's important because the question is always asked, but what do we do? Like, all right, so I have a problem. By the way, my tech, we don't have enough time for my story because it takes a bit. But the short version is I was unhealthy with video games. It was a 5 out of 5. And this wasn't like when I was 12. This is when I was a full-grown adult with the house and a wife and a master's degree in teaching. And I was a 5 out of 5. May 15th, 2011 was the last day I played a video game because I don't have a dial. I just have switches in my life. I'm my daughter Hadley. Right? We're the disco ball people. And for me, that meant pretty drastic life change if I was going to be healthy. The question is, what do we do? The short version is beneficial stress. You're going to be taking away the unhealthy tech and replacing it with risk, responsibility, and free play. It works in ages from 2 up to 17. Doesn't work with 18-year-olds anymore because they're adults and we have to handle them differently. But this is the right answer. This is based off research done by Jonathan Haidt in his book, The Anxious Generation. And let's go through some really practical examples. Risk. Example like, this is a pump track. It's made of asphalt. Can you get hurt on asphalt? You can. And if you look, there's Owen, my very organized helmet wearer, and there's Hadley, just running. Now, you can fall, and you could break a bone, but I assure you it is easier to heal a bone than it is a mind. And when we're putting young people into dangerous situations through technology and specifically the internet and social media, the healthiest thing we can do is begin to introduce appropriate amounts of risk. Do not have them play Frogger on the freeway. But do give them an appropriate amount for that child of risk that they can begin to experience on their own. Risk itself is part of how your child begins to develop as a healthy adult, because that's the goal, not safe kids. The goal is not safe kids. The goal is healthy adults. And they need some version of analog risk, not digital risk. Jonathan Haidt says that we way over-parent the real world and way under-parent the digital one. And this is a way we can begin to change that. Now, this picture is more of a humble brag. I've been to the Oregon coast when it was sunny. I'm a pretty big deal. But the idea is people swimming in the ocean makes people nervous, especially when you're on the Oregon coast when there's riptides. My kids are strong swimmers. We were present. It was a calculated risk. Can things go wrong? They can. But we cannot live our lives assuming that the goal is to never have anything go wrong. We're calculating risk. You're choosing to take that. Alexander and I talk about being road cyclists. That's a calculated risk. There's certainly things that can go wrong with the people around us, especially in Tacoma. The number of people I know have been hit in Tacoma. We calculate it. Ride at the right time of day, ride with the right equipment, have a Garmin Varia that tells you how many cars are coming and how close they are. Right? Like there's great things we can do, but at the end of the day, calculated risk, same thing for our kids. They're going to do dangerous things, but they're going to do them well. Then you're going to add responsibility. That is my son Henry, biking himself to piano. He's adorable. That backpack is like as big as he is. He doesn't look back at all. Now remember, this is the kid that I'm nervous about crossing a street. He's going to bike 6 blocks in our neighborhood to the piano teacher's house. He does not have a phone. He is not wearing a device that shows up as a blue dot on my phone. Henry has a 30-minute lesson. It's a 15-minute bike ride. He should be back in an hour. I can hear you cringing. I feel that negative energy. So much judgment from you. Hey, we've walked it before. We biked it together. We've driven it. And there's a friend's house between our house and that house. He knows where to go if he gets lost. It's also Henry. So I did peek over the back fence because that's where the busy street is. He has to cross one street. Otherwise, it's like sidewalk, sidewalk, sidewalks, cross the street, and then sidewalks the rest of the way. But we let him go. And an hour later, I found a backpack in my garage because Henry had just dropped his bag and walked into my house feeling awesome. And he earned the responsibility for himself, but also from us. We're like, okay, we know we can trust you with this. Now, he was faithful in little things. Henry does the stuff we ask him to do in real life. He says sorry. He takes instructions. He finishes his schoolwork. He does his bedtime routine. We can trust him with little stuff. So, yeah, I think I can trust you to get to piano and back, buddy. Even though that's not your spiritual gift, right? But you could do it. And he did, and it was awesome. Other forms of responsibility. Fishing. This is the Puyallup River. If this was on my laptop, you can't convey this to ProPresenter, but these are both videos synchronized to show both of my sons losing fish. I cut it right before they both burst into tears. Part of responsibility is allowing our children to experience failure. And it's brutal in fishing. And both times they're fighting them and you can see the fish on the shoal. Like you could reach down and grab it, and we didn't. Because there's an important part of growing up that's like, you know what? Sometimes you just don't win. And I'm not going to give you the win. I'm going to let you experience a very loving, very fair loss. You fought it, you lost. We didn't get the fish. Like that's just part of it. Finding those chances for your kids to experience failure. Maybe it's in nature, maybe it's at school, but to go through something hard on their own effort and for you to be the safe landing spot. They'll come back distraught. Okay, right? When my eldest went in a playoff baseball game as a pitcher and got shelled for 5 runs. That's rough. I actually went up to him afterwards and was like, all right, buddy, like you're going to get it. And he's like, Dad, we're up to bat. Like he had already flushed it because that's what Owen can do with his organized brain. He's like, I have a compartment for sadness. 5 runs goes in that. I'm like, that is weird. All right, clearly not the way my brain works. But that's part of letting them get into those situations. They might surprise you with how resilient they are. Then we have free play. Now, this is Ohanapekosh and Mount Rainier. If you look right in the center, you'll see some little colors on a big green rock. It's hard to see. Well, if you were to walk up there, this is what happened. It's about 7:30, 8 a.m., last day of camping. I go, hey, we're going to pack up. They go, can we go play? Now, they know the area. They've proven themselves trustworthy in the woods. I understand they know where the campsite is. I go, great. You got about 90 minutes, 2 hours. Go nuts. I'm going to pack up. 2 hours later, I go out to find them. Get a little bit in, and you start to hear where they are. I go up and find this. Now, Henry is clearly the pride of Norway. It is 10 a.m. in the mountains. It's about 46 degrees. There's no reason he should be shirtless. He does not have enough body fat. He's apparently used his shirt and coat as a covering on the lean-to they built. And oh, by the way, I don't know the kid in the middle. They apparently just befriended a wood nymph. And don't worry, Owen, my eldest, is wearing his bike helmet after 2 hours alone in the woods, because rules, Dad. You can never be too safe. But like this, that's beautiful. They were so proud. They had gone around and built this lean-to fort like they were going to live there for a week, and were so pumped about playing in the woods and growing some of that independence. Now, is there risk involved? Yes, you could have fallen off this rock and got really hurt. Is there responsibility involved? Yes, you have to stay within the bounds of where I can find you. But there's also this free play aspect of learning to mitigate your own dangers because you know it's dangerous. And that's an important part of developing. So what do we do when tech gets unhealthy? We replace it with beneficial stress. It involves risk and responsibility and free play in amounts your child can handle. Start small. Start by you can play in the other room for 10 minutes with your choice of 3 objects, right? But it's going to be free play and you can play as you'd like. That would be an appropriate amount of starting if your kids never did. And then maybe the backyard, and then maybe the front yard, and then maybe a friend's front yard. Still in eyesight, but not directly in front of you. Like those little proximity extensions as your child grows older and can handle that kind of opportunity. All right, I'm going to skip this for time, so please forgive me. I know that's there, but think about it. All right, the question then comes to how do we make it safe at home? First, it's the physical, and then it's how do we pick the good tech? With the physical, we need to remember the internet is the cul-de-sac of this modern era, where kids are going and they're playing games and they're meeting new people and they're exchanging ideas and they're enjoying time together. That is what the internet is doing. We're talking more than 95% of teens say they have daily access to the internet and that they use it. 95 in America. Of those, almost 50% say that they're on it nearly constantly. And with that 8 hours average, that's not an exaggeration. Almost constantly on devices and connecting with others. What we need to remember about the cul-de-sac is where it's located. The cul-de-sac of the internet is located next to a freeway and a federal penitentiary in the red light district at midnight. That's where we're sending our children to go exchange ideas and hang out with others. The reason we want protections around the internet is not because we believe our children are bad people. It's not that we don't trust our kids, it's that we don't trust the internet. It is far from designed for child safety. So keep that in mind when we talk about it, because we're going to be talking about hedges. I like this picture of hedges because of the scale of those hedges. I'm not going to tell you how big your hedge has to be. It could be 100 feet tall, like this hedge. But don't think of it as a fortress wall. The goal is not to keep the world out and you'll never experience bad stuff. Instead, it's to give your child a childhood. It's to allow your child the space to grow as an individual without being manipulated by technology. So with that in mind, there's 3 hedges we want to build. We want to build a hedge around our network, the thing that provides internet to your home. The easiest way is to get a good router or a good protection for your router. The router's the thing that sends internet to your home. If you need a new one, the Griffin router lets you set 4 categories. So does the Bark Home. Griffin router is the actual device that connects to your modem that provides internet to your home. The Bark plugs into that device, and they let you set 4 categories. You can set universal devices like your Roomba and your Nest, so that when you want to shut off your smart TV and your gaming consoles, you can still use your work laptop on the internet. Because if you have like an Xfinity router and you just go, internet shuts off at 8 p.m., you have to use your phone's hotspot or something to be able to connect to your work email, let's say. But in this case, parental devices could still work, kid devices turn off, and it's a wonderful way to protect your wireless, which also is a problem when people come over with their own devices. So someone brings an Xbox console or an old phone that hasn't worked in years but can still connect to the internet through Wi-Fi. They'll have to ask permission to connect to your Wi-Fi, and then you'll know that someone brought a borrowed device and you'll get to have a loving conversation. So you need to have some kind of protection to know what happens on your internet. This will tell you where people went, and set some parameters. You can't play Minecraft between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. You can set that. Or you can only play it between 3 and 4 p.m. Okay. So both those give you the ability to actually parent the internet. Without those, you're just hoping it ends well. And sometimes it doesn't. And then when it doesn't, you don't know it didn't end well because there was no way to report that. So we need a hedge around our internet. Then we need hedges around our devices because these devices don't care that we have protections around our internet. So our smart TV is now safe, so is our Kindle reader, but our smartphones aren't. Smartphones need apps directly on them. Bark works well. Here's what you need to know about iPhones, though. There's no accountability available for what's going on in individual apps. So if your child has, let's say, Instagram, you can't see what's happening in Instagram. You can only see what happens when they leave Instagram. So it's a much better idea to give them a browser, so use Safari, have Bark on it, and they can access Instagram through Safari, because then you can see what's happening. I like Bark because it allows your child the responsibility that they've earned by being respectful and trustworthy. It doesn't spy on them, but it doesn't leave them to self-report everything either. That's an unfair expectation of a youth. So you're there because they're not always the ones being unsafe. Sometimes people around them are being unsafe, and it reports back to you, hey, did you know this person was talking about this, searching these things, asking if your kid can keep a secret if they want to switch to another app, telling them that they're either really pretty or really dumb. Both of those will get reported because those are both things that happen online that can lead to unsafe behaviors. There's also, I actually like this. Bark, a few things it lets you do. Monitor what people are saying. So the whole school thinks you're a loser. You'll get a notification, not so you can hate Colin, but so you can go, hey, I noticed Colin said something mean. Your child might go, oh, that's just something we say. I said the same thing to him at lunch. Like if you haven't heard what 8th graders say to each other that they think is funny, it'll get triggered here, and you'll get to talk about using kind words, and if you don't have anything nice to say, and those kinds of lessons. Managing screen time, filtering websites, and then location alerts, like your child has left school, your child has arrived home. Okay, those kinds of things are available. Covenantize is specifically image-based. So you can get an image, it gets blurred out, and then you get a report on, they were all great, it's all green lights, or yellow, we're not sure about this, would you check into it? Or red, this is concerning content, go and talk to them about it. The point of Covenantize is not, again, dropping the hammer, it's having a deliberate conversation on technology. The final hedge is around your family. If we know that our network now has protections, we know what happens online, we bought a router that lets us see what comes across our internet. We have an application on the phone so we can see what's going on in the social network, but you're still allowed independence and personal development. Finally, we need to make sure that our families talked about what we expect. And this is where the safe, ready, and good comes in. We need to talk to our kids about what safe tech looks like. They go, Mom or Dad, can I have this device? Can I play this game? Can I listen to this music? The first question is it on its face safe? The safest tech is going to be tool tech. This doesn't mean it's the only tech we use, but if you want to know what's the ultimate safe tech, it's going to be tool tech. It only does what you tell it, no hooks involved. There's no browser, there's no app store. and there's accountability. So an example would be the Bark phone. It's a smartphone, but it defaults to nothing, and you can release apps one at a time. So your kid needs WhatsApp because their elite volleyball team communicates that way. You can release just WhatsApp, and they don't get access to TikTok or Snapchat or anything else that might be age-rated the same. That's a nice feature. It allows you to actually parent in a digital space. Then you go, all right, so it's safe, or, you know what, this isn't as safe as we'd want, but I believe you're ready for this level of responsibility, so we're going to allow you to have this game. This would be an example. My 11-year-old came with that, I mentioned Scratch. I wasn't suggesting that to him. He heard about it through a friend, through a school club. Came home and said, Dad, I want to try Scratch. And I looked into it, and I was like, you know what? It's tool tech. It is on a browser. You have to be on the internet. There's no additional apps, but there are player-made games. So we have to set some rules around this. And we have accountability built on this device, so we'll see if something goes sideways. Let's try it out. He asked me for it. He's been responsible enough in other areas, so I decided with my wife, you know what, we're going to do this. Like, let's give you a little bit of internet leash in this safe spot in a public area on a device we control. Go. And it's been 2 months. Really good. Strongly recommend. Actually, I'll get to that in a minute. The question then is, are they ready? With my son, we need to talk about, are you ready? You know the time, the place, the content you can engage, and what it looks like to be safety. If you're not, or to be safe. If you're not comfortable saying pedophile and pornography to your child, don't let them on the internet. Because you are not giving them the words they need to be safe. They don't have the words to express and experience. It's a very real and present danger to them. So we have to make sure that we're at least keeping them safe by equipping them to communicate what isn't safe. Is it good? Look at the fruit. The question is, does it improve your child's reset? We have those 5 areas. Now, that seems vague to some people, so I want to be really specific. Wild Kratts. Anyone ever watch this show? All right. My kids love this show still. The older 2 are not over it. They will watch a 20-minute show and then go spend an hour flipping rocks. 2 brothers, Chris and Martin Kratt. They go become animals and talk about their superpowers. Mosquitoes, only females drink your blood. Pigeons, only bird to feed their young with milk. Henry loves these fun facts, gets every book on biology and anthropology he can, and just starts reading about the world and the critters in it. Cool. If you can use 20 minutes of drool tech to inspire real-world on learning, please do it. What about these guys? You guys ever seen this? Okay, yeah, Dude Perfect. This is a YouTube channel. Don't just send your kid to YouTube. They actually have an app. You can lock it in. It's much safer that way. But these are 5 guys that do silly trick shots, and my boys love it. They'll watch one 10-minute episode and spend an hour trying to hit a ball into a bucket across our neighborhood. Cool, right? If you can get inspired to go engage the real world because you saw some, and they're safe and lovely, and I'm only mildly envious of their lives because it's just 5 friends playing sports for a living. I'm mostly happy for them, 90-10. But what about, this is Scratch. So you use Scratch in tandem with something like this guy. His name is Griff Patch. And Griff Patch is a very patient tutor. You'll see that very first one, Scratch RPG. And this is actually the game that Owen is building. You'll notice it looks a lot like Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, for my gaming friends in the room. You make a little emulator of a game. And he was so pumped. Owen was so pumped when he made his little sprite character walk. And it looked like he was taking steps. It took him like 2.5 hours to get to that spot in 30-minute chunks. But these are ways my kids are inspired by even drool tech. That's on YouTube. Now, again, don't send your kid to unfettered YouTube. But with supervision and proper responsibility, they can get to this point where even at 11, they can use it well, and it can be growing their talents and abilities using amazing technology. So our conversation was there's 2 kinds of tech, tool and drool. We can know if it's healthy or if it's problematic with a reset, and that becomes our talking point. We can build intentional hedges around our family, our network, and our devices. And we can make sure that we use the best tech well, that it's safe, ready, and the fruit of it is good, so that we can raise healthy youth in a tech world. Thank you all for your time and attention. I'll be here afterwards. If you have questions, I would love to talk with you. Thank you all for the opportunity.